Poland has just held a crucial election. Karol Nawrocki is the country's new president. The result is a major setback for Prime Minister Donald Tusk's pro-EU government. The State Electoral Commission said Mr Nawrocki won 50.89% ahead of Warsaw's Liberal Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski on 49.11%. Let's go to Warsaw and join my colleague Kasia Madeira. Kasia.
Okay, taki wielce prawo.
Martin, the congratulations are already coming in, and I'm just going to explain a bit of background noise. We've got a protest happening here right in front of the presidential palace. It's not related to that election result. It's something completely different, but we're battling a little bit with the noise. But the congratulations internationally are coming in. Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, sending his congratulations. Of course, a lot of interest in the new president because he is the commander-in-chief of the Polish army, the third largest army in NATO. Also, congratulations from Volodymyr Zelensky, reaching out to this nation, which has been a vocal supporter of Ukraine's ongoing war, that conflict following the full-scale invasion of Russia, and also the president of Germany, arguably through gritted teeth, congratulating the new leader because he would have preferred, ideally, to have somebody from the pro-EU camp, Rafał Trzaskowski, but that wasn't to be. A nail-biting finish in this election, which is really important. The president of Germany saying that he hopes that the new president of Poland will work with Germany on closer ties, on democracy and the rule of law. And that is hugely contentious because the EU had criticised the previous Law and Justice Party of breaching the rule of law. Why is that important? Let's talk to my guest, Marta Prokofiev-Jazowska, who is the deputy head of the Warsaw office of the European Council on Foreign Relations. My goodness, it's going to be quite a relationship between the EU and the Law and Justice-backed Karol Nawrocki. Just remind us of the background to how Law and Justice works with Brussels, or doesn't.
Well, first of all, Law and Justice was on a collision course with the European Union on many levels, and I think we should expect the same from Karol Nawrocki, or even a more increased level of that, because Law and Justice obstructed judicial reforms, and Karol Nawrocki will continue to veto them, reforms that are necessary for Donald Tusk to restore the rule of law. He will probably also try to damage relations that Donald Tusk is building with individual EU countries, and what Donald Tusk is trying to do when it comes to European defence, which is a strengthening of ties to try to rebalance Poland's dependence on the United States. That will all be obstructed by Karol Nawrocki.
So when it comes to Brussels, obviously they had a great relationship with Donald Tusk, the current Prime Minister. He was previously from Brussels, head of former president of the European Council. I just wonder how hampered will be he in terms of trying to maintain that pro-EU stance for this country, which arguably has benefited so much from being within the European Union.
No, that's right. I think that for the next 2 years, we can say that Donald Tusk, while still in government before the 2027 parliamentary election, will be able to maintain this pro-European course. The problem is that he won't be able to sign in legislation that makes it that Poland takes a strategic turn, a pivot towards Europe, such as the bilateral treaty that Poland has now tried to implement between Poland and France, which strengthens defense relationships between these two countries. And the biggest problem, of course, is that with Karol Nawrocki in the presidential office, Donald Tusk will not be able to implement judicial reforms, and therefore his 4 years in power will probably not be deemed successful, lowering his chances of winning in 2027, and probably then a more far-right government coming into power in 2027. So the pro-European course is there for probably another 2 years.
So you think potentially it could go that when it comes to that 2027 parliamentary election, Law and Justice will be strengthened, will be feeling emboldened given this result, and we're not talking about a poll exit, are we, from the EU?
No, not to that degree. So Karol Nawrocki is obviously a bit of a question mark because he doesn't have a lot of legacy that we can run on and see because he hasn't been in office before. However, we can safely say that he is very similar to other right-wing parties in Europe, which run on a very strong campaign of trying to dismantle the EU from within. So it's not about Poland leaving the EU, but it's definitely about Poland Poland having its own sovereignty within the EU, and his tenure will definitely make PIS's position much stronger and make it appear that Tusk's coalition government is falling apart and has not been successful in coming forward on the reforms that they promised that they would push for, which is judicial reforms, abortion, civil partnerships.
PIS, of course, is the Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, the Polish naming of law and justice. What do you make of this? Because we know that Poland, when you speak to Poles, they understand the changes that being in the EU has made, and yet this party, this very adamantly critical of Brussels party, has put through an unknown candidate. Is there a failing from Brussels to continue, to continue with that positive spin on relations between Poland and the EU?
I think that may be one side of it. There's definitely some blame on the side of the Tusk government. There could be some blame on the side of the EU because Poland was still is leading the Polish presidency, and I don't think that they've made that much of a point. But Europe has always been this battlefield for Poland. U.S. relations, on the other hand, have always been a bipartisan issue. There's no doubt in that, and that would have continued under Trzaskowski. But Europe is a contentious issue, and I think that propaganda, Russian propaganda, and also the so-called Trump effect, and by that I mean the fact that however many scandals surfaced, Karol Nawrocki's electorate just chose to ignore all the very big question marks that we have around this candidate, president.
Well, president, in August when he takes office in that building behind us. Marta Prowić-Jazowska from the European Council on Foreign Relations, thank you so much. One thing to say, this is a divided country. It was neck and neck. He needs to start uniting it. Martine.
Kasia, thank you very much. Kasia Madeira in Warsaw.